If something looks like a diet, sounds like a diet, acts like a diet, is it a diet even when it says that it's not a diet? At this point, you may have received advertisements, whether it's on the radio or via podcasts or even on YouTube, about the company Noom. They are a company in which they advertise specifically and use language like you can create peace with food, you can eat whatever you want. They use a lot of language around creating food freedom that leaves people wondering, is this a good fit for me? After all, my relationship with food is messed up. I don't want to feel how I'm feeling. And a lot of times it leads them down the path of thinking, maybe Noom could be a good fit, seeing that they're advertising and using language that makes me think that maybe I could heal my relationship with food after all. The reality is it can feel really confusing now in 2022 to figure out what is a diet versus what's not a diet. How do I distinguish the difference between different kinds of programs and advertisements? How do I decide what is best for me, or how do you decide in this case what's best for you? How can you tell, for example, whether or not Noom is a diet or if it's intuitive eating? If you've got that question, if you're feeling confused or you've heard some people talking about Noom and you've been wondering, is it actually a diet or should maybe I participate in it? This video is definitely going to be for you, because we're going to talk about why it is not intuitive eating, how it is a diet, and how, in my personal opinion, this is not something that I would recommend for anyone to follow, and I'm going to lay out the reasons why. But before we dive into things, let me introduce myself. My name is Catherine Metzeler. I'm a registered dietitian, certified intuitive eating counselor, and I help people to create peace with food and remove the shame that they feel about their bodies so that they can live a more abundant, free, present life where food and body doesn't take up so much headspace.
You definitely want to take a listen to this.
And if you're new here, subscribe to my channel below, like this video. If you do like it, it means so much to me when you give it a like, and comment below with any questions that you have as you watch through the video. So recently there has been an explosion around Noom, it seems. While it's a company that's been around for some time, relatively speaking, in comparison to other diet companies, it hasn't been around for too long, but it is currently making many, many millions, multiple millions per year selling its products and its programs to people. And there's a lot of questions that people have around whether or not Noom is intuitive eating. So let's talk about it. Because following diets and saying that you are following a diet has become less and less popular over the years, diet companies have had to get pretty creative around their strategy of marketing diets in a way that says that the diet is actually not a diet, which leaves us feeling really confused as consumers. How are you supposed to decide whether or not something would be helpful or harmful to you when you are told and marketed with specific language around, for example, the anti-diet space? So this is the case with Noom. Noom specifically uses anti-diet, food freedom, intuitive eating language, when really it is just the same old diet of diets past. More specifically, I'm going to talk about 5 reasons why Noom is not intuitive eating and why it's just the same old of many other diets that have existed previously and in the past. The first reason why Noom is not intuitive eating is because it asks for a weight loss goal. It asks you to track your weight, and it gives you a progress line or a prediction as to how long it might take for you to lose that weight. This is not intuitive eating, because intuitive eating specifically notes, teaches, walks you through the process of movement towards allowing the release of the pursuit of weight loss. What I mean by that more specifically is that it talks about in intuitive eating that in order to create a more intuitive relationship with food, you need to give up the pursuit of weight loss. And I have done other videos on why it's not just as simple as, yes, I'm just gonna give up the pursuit, but nonetheless, when we are pursuing weight loss, it likely means we're having to restrict food, engage in certain exercise behaviors, and depend on external rules and disconnect completely from our intuition. So any program that's telling you that you need to lose weight, it's giving you the option to lose weight, it's encouraging you to lose weight, is not intuitive eating, because it's really the antithesis of what intuitive eating is. And intuitive eating makes that very clear in the beginning, that it is not a weight loss program. And in fact, we need to let go of the pursuit of weight loss. The second reason why Noom is not intuitive eating is because Noom gives you a specific calorie goal, and it tells you that you need to stay within that calorie amount. Not only this, the calories that are recommended are incredibly low and very concerning and are not appropriate for adults. But nonetheless, the recommendation around a specific calorie amount is not intuitive eating. Intuitive eating, in fact, is trying to get you to move away from following calories, only eating a certain amount each day. And one of the core principles of intuitive eating is something called rejecting the diet mentality, which is that it wants you to reject this idea that you need to count your calories in very specific amounts and that you can only eat a certain amount. Counting calories is also the antithesis to what intuitive eating is. The third reason why Noom is not in alignment with intuitive eating, and it's not intuitive eating at all, is an extension of the encouragement of the weight loss piece, which is that Noom says that weight loss is merely a psychological issue. It really talks about and promotes this piece of the program that they've got mental health therapists on board and they can support you in weight loss, and really it's just about getting your mind right. Not only is this not part of intuitive eating at all, based on what number two, what I mentioned just a moment ago, which is that weight loss is not a part of intuitive eating, it's also incredibly harmful because it only serves to further perpetuate weight stigma and this idea that if you just get what's going on in your mind right, whatever that means, then you will naturally lose weight. The reality is body diversity is normal and natural. People exist in all size bodies, and there is a lot of harm that is caused by encouraging people to follow external rules, specific calorie guidelines, and all the other things that are encouraged in diets and diet culture to try to shrink their body. So not only is this not in alignment with intuitive eating, this idea causes so much harm. The fourth reason why it is not intuitive eating is because Noom has a structure of having a stoplight of foods that are green, yellow, and red. Obviously with the green being those are foods that you can eat as much as you want of, yellow is some sort of restriction, red is foods that you want to stay away from. This stoplight use has been used endlessly in different kinds of diets over time. I'm thinking of in the past, most certainly Weight Watchers, this showed up a bunch. It's nothing new. This is something that maybe you have participated in, that other people have followed, and it is not intuitive eating because intuitive eating not only doesn't use stoplights, there are no good and bad foods. It really seeks to remove the morality out of the eating experience, stop the blame and the shame about food, and it really focuses on a all foods fit philosophy, which means, again, there's no good and bad foods, that there's a place for all kinds of foods in our diet. And in fact, when we start to categorize foods as good and bad, or putting them in red, yellow, and green categories, that ends up leading to more dysfunction and dysregulation and confusion around food. And for a lot of people can lead to cycles of disordered eating because it gets really confusing over time and we don't know what to eat and we're restricting food, so then we might end up binging on the foods. And so this is another way where it's just in complete opposition. Using a stoplight to guide what we're eating is a diet. That is not intuitive eating. Last but not least, and most certainly this is not an exhaustive list, the last reason why Noom is not intuitive eating is because, interestingly and not surprisingly, it uses this character of an elephant in its coaching and its program. And they say that the elephant is representative of your food cravings, your internal food cravings, and that this elephant is irrational, emotional, and impulsive. This is dieting 101. How many times have you been on a diet and they've told you that you just need to control your cravings in order to experience more freedom around food, a lovely life, find partnership, whatever it is they're promising? This is age-old diet advice. And not only this, the cartoon that they use, or the imagery of there being an elephant internally, has so much weight stigma loaded in there, it's hard to ignore. And honestly, is really harmful for many people. You don't have an elephant inside of you. You are not irrational, emotional, out of control, impulsive if you have food cravings. Food cravings are often a signal to us that we need to be eating more food or more consistently, or including a variety of food, that it's not something that we need to suppress or control. And this is what Noom is encouraging. So in summary, through and through, Noom is a diet. It works hard to try to convince you and others that it's not a diet and that you can somehow experience food freedom while pursuing weight loss. And unfortunately, they do not exist. They cannot coincide with one another. I know that that's a really hard truth. And that the marketing preys on this, because so many of our fears, a very common fear when we come into doing this work, is that we are going to gain weight and our body's gonna change, and or we experience that and we think, oh my gosh, have I done something wrong? Should I just stop this entirely? And so I hope that this information was helpful for you so that you can make a thoughtful, informed decision around companies like this or other companies that market themselves in specific ways, but it doesn't necessarily mean that they are what they say they are. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you like the video, subscribe below, comment below if there's anything you learned, anything that you've experienced. I'd love to hear from you. If you want more from me, check out the resources in my bio. And if you want a free resource around how to create peace with food, if you are afraid of gaining weight, check that out below too. And I will see you here next week.